Hi, I'm Dashay Williams.
And here we are doing our second podcast and talking about something that's very important to both of us, and that's mentoring. We find it really one of the most critical things we could work on is finding a way to get people that have more information to give the information to those that have less information.
Yeah, today we just kind of want to dive in on just like our background and kind of give our advice on mentorship and just keep asking each other questions. So we're going to dive right in. So for you, Scott, what if someone wanted to get into MedTech? What would you say to them?
So I think the most important thing is really to figure out what do they want to do in MedTech, because I think it's one of the most inspiring careers because you're doing something to help others' lives improve. You know, there's nothing more important than your health. So, but there's a lot of areas and you know, do they want to do something that's people facing? Do they want to make a product? Do they want to sell the product? Do they want to oversee the people that create the product, or do they want to work with the FDA? I think, you know, especially so from my own experience coming from an area where we didn't have people that had many professional careers, I wouldn't even know that there was that many different parts of the puzzle, so to speak. So I would spend the time and talk to someone and really dive in and find out what are they good at, what are their interests, and what do they want to do long term, because it's very often in a career, it is hard to pivot. So if you start in sales, it isn't super easy to go then and become someone that works with the FDA. Everything is possible, but if they have an idea of where they want to land, that'll give me a better idea of how to guide them of where they should plant their feet first.
Okay, that's great. That's actually good advice. I just learned a little bit about that myself.
So I guess, you know, same question for you. I guess, you know, you spent a long time in basketball, and say, you know, there's a girl out there that was young and wanted to get into basketball, and they wanted to say get into, you know, a Division I school or play in the WNBA. You know, what would you talk to them about in that first decision?
Starting off, I'd say kind of, you know, if you want to play at a high level, sometime it happens earlier, sometime it may happen later. But I think at that time when you do find out if you are serious and you would like to pursue basketball in college or at a professional level, I would definitely suggest probably having someone like a mentor at your side who is fully invested in you, in your future. Not only just like a basketball trainer, but I would say someone academically, because academics is important. In order to receive a scholarship, you do have to maintain a certain GPA. So I believe that you should really focus and hone in on your studies during high school. There's courses I know people sometimes take it for granted or take it lightly, but these are very important because they do look at your transcripts. Also, I would say as like a basketball trainer, don't just get someone that's going to train you and just do random skills. You want someone who's really going to dial in what your weakness is. You want to focus in on your weaknesses instead of like your strengths. You're already good at something, so you want to focus in on what you're not good at. The more you focus on that, then you become good, and that's how your skills get better and better. Just showing your skill levels to these colleges, and they'll definitely recruit you.
I guess, you know, from my standpoint, you know, I would think one interesting piece, I don't know if you have an answer for this, but, you know, I was on the Board of Education in my city for a long time, and there was a lot of coaches that would get these young kids, and they're in high school, and they're, you know, they're doing well, but say they might not necessarily be, you almost know they're probably not likely to go to the NBA, but the coaches are pushing them to forget about, you know, really don't focus on academics, don't focus on anything but basketball. I guess, how would you go about picking a mentor when you're, or even say, you know, as a young adult, what advice would you give them in sort of taking in that feedback from folks? Because I have to imagine you went through the same, where there's some folks that make it it's everything. This sport is everything. You don't need anything else. Where a lot of folks aren't going to go and then make millions of dollars in the NBA. So I guess, what would you tell someone young and how to navigate that?
Honestly, it depends. Unfortunately, I think just from me watching the current kind of role and seeing how AAU programs are, there is, I would say, a lot of coaches who do steer these kids in the wrong direction. But that's kind of the culture that it is now from what I see compared to when I played AAU. the coaches more will focus on academics is key. So I would say it honestly, not even just the mentor, but goes back to the parents. As a parent, you have to be aware of the situation you're putting your child into. And what I mean by that is just making sure that you follow what the coaches, like you look for what the coaches are teaching your children. Are they teaching them basketball solely that? Then that's what the parents want their child to focus on. If that's okay with them, then that's just how it is. But if you want your child to focus in and look for a coach that is truly and looking to develop meaningful relationships with your child, then you have to look for those programs. There's going to be good and bad coaches out there, but it fits for whatever kind of player that person is. You really have to just kind of dial it in yourself. That's more of a personal preference. So it's not really something that I can teach or give advice. It's just what you're looking for. So you can kind of right off the bat know if a person is there for you and caring. All the coaches that I've come across and every team that I play for, I personally felt connected to my coach, and they talked to me on and off the court. And that was the main thing when I played basketball at Rutgers University. Coach Vivian Stringer, which I'm truly thankful and blessed I played for her, Hall of Fame coach. She always mentioned that you are a much bigger person than just what do you do on the court. You're a female, number one. You know, you're an athlete. That's always going to come second. Your academics come first because you get 4 to maybe 5 years to play in college. Yeah. But what do you do after that? The WNBA, I think the highest paying salary is roughly around $250 for like the top players.
Yeah.
So as a woman, we really,
important.
We have to dive deeper to what we would like to study while we're on scholarship. So a lot of these players now are getting engineering degrees, which is awesome. So I think we need to take advantage of the gift that we have. Use your sport to push you and get through college on a free scholarship. But we also have to look for a solid major that will pay you once you're out.
Yeah, I would almost think, would it make sense? And I mean, I think it makes sense for everyone to have multiple mentors, but I would think especially in a situation where you may even want someone who's almost a sports mentor that can guide you in the sport itself. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, I would think it'd become critical to have a life mentor outside that has 100%. No connection to the sport, so that you'd be grounded into everything outside of that too, so that someone's talking to you about the realities of the day after you stop playing the sport.
I agree with that, but also I want to put into a sense having that mentor who is still into the sport, but might not necessarily be your trainer, but you do want someone who understands what you do go through. Someone necessarily who is a mentor, you know, business, life and all, that's great, but they might not understand sort of what you're going through as an athlete in general, because there are certain lanes and certain avenues that each mentor can provide. Yeah. But if you do want someone that's not a trainer, but also knows the sport of basketball, know you're physically hurt, what you're going through, the mental toughness, that was good with me. My mentor played when he was younger, but he knew the mental aspect of it. So he was training more of my mental capacity. Like, you are much stronger than your body. So if my body's tired, my mind's not tired, that's what's going to keep me to keep going. So I think it's truly, you know, like I said before, I'm grateful to have him, but it is a mental game. And I think a mentor should know the sport, at least because it might not align sort of like when you're looking for goals or looking for schools. It's good to have someone with knowledge in that subject that you are going for to achieve your goals.
Understand. No, it makes sense. Makes sense.
I know you're really big on real estate and like flipping houses. Can we learn a little bit more? What advice would you give someone who's looking into, you know, going into real estate? What's the journey like?
Yeah, so I mean, different piece than MedTech. I mean, I think at some point we should probably do a whole series on, you know, getting into medical technology. And I think as we have different guests on, as we talked about, both of us are going to be interviewing different folks in different special interests. So I think that'll go a long way there. So in a quick overview, I mean, if someone comes to me and they're looking to get into real estate, you know, it really, it usually I'll start with questions. You know, how much money do you have saved up? You know, do you have no money? Because that's going to guide you towards something like there's a popular area in real estate now they call sub 2, where people take on others' loans and then rent that property out. So you can really do that with no money out of your pocket. Some people do wholesaling, you know, with no money out of their pocket. I have a little bit of a rub with some of those folks in the wholesaling when they can't. So what wholesaling is someone can go and offer, you can see a rundown property and say, hey, I would like to buy that house for $100,000. And that person would make a deal with them and sign a contract that says, I'm going to sell it to you for $100,000. Now, what a lot of folks do is they turn around and now they have a piece of paper that has value. It's, hey, I got someone that's going to sell me this house for $100,000. I know that professionals would buy this for $120,000. So what I'm going to do is go run around and advertise to the folks who buy these properties and fix them up and then flip them, so to speak. Most people understand the flipping concept. But what they'll do is these wholesalers will now send that piece of paper to someone who's going to, an end user, a flipper, and for the $120,000. So when that closes, the person that sold the house gets their $100,000. The wholesaler gets $20,000, and the person purchasing it gets a good deal because they're buying it at a good value at $120,000. And that's a way that really tens of thousands of folks now has gotten popular to make some money in real estate without having money out of pocket. Now I'll go through what bothers me with that. So when it first started, it was generally folks that would be buying the property and they had the money to buy the property if there was no one else that was going to buy it. That's ethical to me. Mm-hmm. What I think is unethical is people started selling the idea of how to do this, and they sold a lot of people that had no money to actually buy the property. So, and instead of telling the people, hey, I'm going to resell this contract, the people that are selling the house believe you're buying that property no matter what in 30 days for $100,000. And what happens sometimes, especially with newer people doing it, they may think it's worth $120,000, and then when they go out to people that do this professionally, they find out it's worth $90,000.
Okay.
And that person now moves out of their house, moves all their belongings. Generally, they don't have much to begin with. That's why they need to sell the house for quick cash. And now you've just moved someone out of their house to get the money, and then they will at the last minute tell them, hey, I'm not buying this house now. So for me, I find that really dishonest. I don't believe in any kind of business practice that isn't clear and fair. So especially when most people would accept the terms, even if they knew the truth. So wholesaling is a good option, but if you do that, I would tell them, you need to be honest. If you aren't going to buy this property, if you don't find someone to resell it to, let them know.
Okay, but I got a question off of that, actually. Because how would say me per se, right?
Yeah.
How would I know if a person is ethical or not? Because you just mentioned that same thing with the coaching, good or bad mentors. Yep. So how does someone scout out or pick and see if this is an ethical person or they might be hustling me or scamming me?
No, and it's really common now. So I think that's a good question. So one of the first things you can do is ask for a proof of funds, because a lot of these anyone who has the money, it takes them 10 minutes to go on their bank account, take the bank account number off and show you, look, I have $500,000 to buy your house. If someone can't provide that to you, big no. That's an easy, simple way. You can also ask to talk to anyone who's done a project with them previously.
Okay.
You can also ask them. You can say, are you going to be reselling this? You can even put it in the contract that if I'm selling this to you, you can't resell it, which creates and that happens. So a lot of folks will look to do what they call a double closing. So they'll actually close on the property. They get someone to fund it. So they might come to you and say, hey, I need $100,000 to buy this property. I'm going to sell it the same day for $120,000, and I will give you 50% of that. So, though, to be fair, the person selling the property sold their property. So, you made sure that, hey, someone has the money. I want to see who has the money to buy this property now. And you can also ask for a non-refundable deposit. Okay. So if you say, hey, I'm going to be moving out of my house and doing all of this, it's going to cost me $10,000. I am guaranteeing that I'm going to sell you this house at a discounted rate for $100,000, but I need a $10,000 non-refundable deposit. Now, if I'm buying someone's home, I wouldn't prefer to do that. But if it's a genuinely good deal and you have the money to buy that, and you are a real estate investor, you're not going to also have much of a problem with it.
Right.
It may be subject to, inspections or something of that nature that they couldn't see out of the gate. But that's a good question. And you should check on that.
So overall question, just for the both of us in general. So say you go back to the age of 15, what advice would you give yourself in general? Could be about on anything, success, life. What would you tell yourself looking back in time?
Geez, I mean, we need a few hours for that. I think there's so many things. I think, the biggest, and it's an old adage, but it becomes true when you reflect. I would say you don't regret the things you did. You regret the things you didn't do more. So there's a lot of things that I think I didn't do out of fear for it not working. I should have just went for that. I've lost a lot more money on what I didn't do than what I did. I guess that, that would really be number one. I think number two, be yourself. I think it's, just be you. I think there's nothing more powerful than someone that's just being their authentic self. And I'm not sure that's as easy to do when you're younger either, because you're still trying to figure that out. But it's worth, just be you. And if the people around you don't like that person, have some faith that there is the right people in the universe or out in your world that are going to come to you that like who you are. And that's a really powerful thing, to just be able to be 100% you all the time. You're not thinking about navigating how to be in a certain group. So I think that would be number two, I guess. A third thing, and I'll let you go, is that I would say invest in yourself first. I think so many times everyone's looking for an external investment, like for the person doing real estate, the person doing MedTech. Honestly, the very first investment should be into themselves and learning. And that may be college. It may be finding mentors, coaches, but sometimes it might even take paying for that knowledge, or say being in a certain group. So if you want to learn finance, join a mastermind of a finance group. Go to college for a mastermind group, or for a finance course. These things, I think, are the investment